I love the word Cardinesque. My staff invented it. It means that we can be passionate about issues, we can fight to get things done, but we're not going to make it personal. Let's figure out a way to get to the finish line and not worry so much about who gets credit for it. Let's do it in a way that we can get results. I grew up in a closely knit community. My life was basically around the neighbors I lived with, my community, my family, my school. My synagogue was in the same neighborhood, all around Ashburton, where I grew up in Baltimore. My values were instilled upon me by my family and our community of helping other people, helping those particularly who are less fortunate. Myrna and I had been married 1 year. We had a 3-week trip planned for California that summer. And lo and behold, there was an opportunity to run for the Maryland House of Delegates. But I wasn't going to give up going to California because I had promised my wife that that's what we were going to do. So I decided I would follow. I gave my brother the withdrawal slips and I was off to California. I came back only to find that not only was I still in the race, but I got all the support from all the local groups, and I was well on my way to being elected to the House of Delegates. In my first years in the Maryland General Assembly, I was representing Baltimore City. I was appointed to the Ways and Means Committee in my first year, which was an accomplishment for a freshman member. And I was able to leverage that on a lot of school aid bills, police aid bills, and other bills to help Baltimore. I was able to become chairman of the Ways and Means Committee at a very young age. I had broad support, and I was elevated to Speaker after my 3rd term. Other than being United States Senator, it's a great job. You can really determine an agenda. It's hands-on. The problem for me was I was Speaker when I was at a pretty young age, and I felt that after 8 years, it was time for me to move on to the next challenge, and that's when I decided to run for the House of Representatives.
Now, it's time to begin again. For Congress, Ben Cardin. Because for Ben, the business of serving Maryland and its people is never done.
Well, Maryland's 3rd Congressional District has a great tradition.
I think it's the best congressional district in the state.
It gave me a platform to deal with the problems of the state of Maryland that I dealt with when I was Speaker of the House, as well as my real passion to help Baltimore and our urban center with the federal government. It's a large body, as you know, 435 members. So you do tend to develop friends that you rely upon.
Ben and I met before we both went to the legislature in 1966. And over those years, Ben and I become best of friends. And I love Myrna. Ben Cardin, of course, has a deep sense of humanity and commitment to human rights and equal rights and justice. And I encouraged him to get involved in the Helsinki Commission because I knew those values would make its work better.
In 1975, the countries of Europe, the United States, and Canada and Helsinki entered into certain fundamental basic principles on human rights, on security, on economic and environmental issues.
I have served on that body for almost my entire legislative career. I have chaired or been ranking member or co-chaired it for many, many Congresses. I had a lot of buddies. Rob Portman, a Republican from Cincinnati, and I became friends. He was also on the Ways and Means Committee.
Ben and I have had an interesting political relationship, worked on a lot of legislation together. I've gotten him in trouble on occasion. I was involved in IRS reform back in the 90s, and the Democratic House member who was the co-chair backed out because it was somewhat controversial. And Ben Cardin stepped up, and we put together IRS reforms that for the next decade really helped transform that agency.
It's a good bill. It's a bill that will accomplish structural change, and it's going to become reality because of Rob Portman. So I want to join the caller from Cincinnati to say that your leadership really made this possible. Congratulations.
Well, likewise.
We worked on the pension reform bill, so we were able to get significant pension reform done.
A secure retirement.
It's what we worked for most of our lives.
That's why in Congress, I helped lead a bipartisan effort to make it easier for families to save even more of their money for retirement.
The House is voting final passage on the resolution authorizing the use of military force against Iraq.
I have grave concerns about the consequences of unilateral preemptive military attack by the United States. Mr. Speaker, I voted against giving the President the use of force. It was not a popular vote in my congressional district, but it was the right vote.
There's a lot of things that I was able to get done while I was in the House. Preventive health care under the Medicare system, early screenings saved lives, the Chesapeake Bay program.
It is our most important natural resource. We have been working for a decade to try to improve the quality of the Chesapeake Bay.
When it comes to protecting our bay, we're all in the same boat. I'm Ben Cardin. Because I love this bay, I approve this message.
This is an incredible body, the People's House. And I want to thank my constituents in the 3rd Congressional District of Maryland for giving me the opportunity to serve in this body during the past 20 years.
In Congress, I've helped families solve real problems, and that's what I'll do in the Senate.
Ben's not flashy, but he never stops.
Who says I'm not flashy?
In the words of a TV personality, how sweet it is.
Washington, Mr. Cardin of Maryland, Mr. Carper of Delaware, Mr. Casey of Pennsylvania.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? I do. Congratulations.
It's easy to get engaged in the Senate. In the House, you're sort of focused on the committee, you serve on one principal committee. Those are the people you know, those are the people you work with. In the Senate, you serve on 4 or 5 committees, so there's a lot more senators you're working with on the committees. In addition, it's 100 versus 435, so the personal relationships in the Senate are actually closer than the personal relationships in the House. And the adjustment was kind of easy. I was the only new member of the Senate that asked to serve on the Small Business Committee. My grandfather started a small business when he came over from Europe to escape the pogroms. And it was a small business. It was a small little grocery store. And he was able, through ingenuity and hard work, to turn it into a very large wholesale food distributorship company that was able to support several families. This country is a land of opportunity.
Let's really help small business so they can help America grow.
When I became chairman of the Small Business Committee, I set out to help underserved communities. If you look at the COVID experience and you look at how our economy has responded, we didn't go into a depression. We responded very quickly, and I think part of it was the programs that I was able to work with Republicans to get done to help American small businesses. Healthcare is clearly one area that I concentrated on in the Senate.
Every person in America should be entitled to affordable, quality health care.
Obviously, the Affordable Care Act will go down as one of the great accomplishments in my career. Every vote counted on the Affordable Care Act, but was able to get into that bill the National Institute for Minority Health and Health Disparities, no pre-authorizations for emergency care, the prudent layperson standards for emergency care, and the Patient's Bill of Rights.
I want to make sure that one of the provisions I worked hard for, pediatric dental, is in fact included in all plans so that our children have access to dental care.
Well, it started, of course, from the year I was elected with the tragedy of DeMonte Driver in Prince George's County.
Ben learned about a homeless boy who had an infected tooth, and the boy died. That made Ben really sad. He wrote a law so every kid can see a dentist. We have a special dental van that goes from school to school. He even helps make sure we learn how to brush our teeth. He's my friend, Ben. I hope he's your friend, too.
He is the best guy, the best senator that we could possibly have, in addition to me. As the ads say, my friend Ben.
So I'm going to really miss my friend Ben, our friend Ben, Maryland's friend Ben. Throughout his career in the House and the Senate, he's been involved in making sure that the United States plays a very important role in the global community. He is the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Senate Foreign Relations Committee is critically important to our national security. Some of the most interesting discussions I can ever remember having. King Abdullah of Jordan's my favorite. When he comes into this room, you know you're going to get an honest assessment of how he feels the Middle East is going. We try to work bipartisan, as witnessed the way Senator Corker and I did on the Iran agreement. It was a turbulent time. It was unclear whether it's going to be a treaty or an agreement, and there was a lot of fighting going on. I became ranking member, and I had a conversation with Senator Corker, who was the chairman of the committee, and the two of us tried to find a common path forward for the review of the statute. We were able to get that done, and lo and behold, the review statute passed by near unanimous. I think it was a 99-1 vote in the floor of the United States Senate, and passed the House of Representatives by an overwhelming vote. I have been a strong advocate of the United States helping to promote Ukraine's defense, and in international bodies making it clear that Russia has violated its international commitments and that Ukraine should have the support of the international community. But perhaps I'm best known for the Magnitsky sanctions.
Who was Sergei Magnitsky? A young Russian whose patriotism towards his country that he loved required him to report corruption.
As a result, he was arrested by the authorities because they didn't want him to disclose the corruption. He was tortured and killed. We used that example to establish the Magnitsky sanctions, which are personal sanctions, as compared to a countrywide sanction.
I want to thank Senator Cardin, who is a little too modest, because if it had not been for his advocacy, this legislation would not have been passed today. He has been a steadfast leader on the issue of human rights in Russia and the issue of human rights throughout the world.
He's taken on huge responsibilities nationally and internationally, but he's never forgotten about our great state.
It's the best state in the nation to live in. There's so much here. It's our beaches, it's our mountains, it's the variety of our state, it's the people, it's the neighborhoods, it's the Orioles and the Ravens if you're from the Baltimore area, the Commanders if you're in the Washington area, our seafood. There's no such thing as crab cakes outside of Maryland being called Maryland crab cakes. Only Maryland knows how to make an orange crush.
The state of Delaware had the temerity to pass legislation calling the orange crush their state cocktail. These are fighting words.
On this issue of the Orange Crush, we have drawn a line in the sand.
Here we stand on the field of battle to join in the question, original or improved? Ladies and gentlemen, let's have at it.
So I think this was tough because they're both really good, but I think we've got three votes for this sample.
From now on, I would hope Delaware, you could be your state drink, but please call it the Ocean City, Maryland Orange Crush.
He has led Federal Team Maryland in just a superb way. He's been our quarterback.
And I am proud of being part of the team. Our delegation works very closely together. We've been able to work with Governor Moore and Francis Scott Key Bridge, the FBI location. That was a huge fight. There was a day when Goddard was scheduled to be closed. Goddard's not only open today, it's thriving. The transportation programs, we've been able to fund our transit systems. I established transportation alternative programs, which is connecting communities in Baltimore. I made a decision on the first day I was elected to the House of Delegates that my family is going to be my priority. I'm grounded by being at home. So I did things a little bit differently than a lot of new legislators. I spent my evenings at home, not in Annapolis. My family is very important to me, and I have a very supportive family. Myrna's been incredibly supportive of my political career. You can't do this unless you have a supportive family.
The game ball goes to the person who has stood by me. She is my best friend and my best advisor, the love of my life, Myrna. Thank you.
I remember a time where being moderate, being in the middle was an advantage. People liked that. They liked the fact you came together and worked out issues. I have lots of Republican friends in the Senate, and we've worked together to get things accomplished. We're not finished yet, but the system has become so partisan that it's tough to get votes on judges or get votes on simple nominations because of the partisan division that is taking place in our society.
Ben and I don't agree on all issues, but we agree on one thing, which is we were hired to get a job done for the people of our respective states. We worked hard to do that, but mostly Ben focused on doing the right thing and making it bipartisan and getting it done, and that's Ben Cardin's legacy.
Ben Cardin is the kind of leader that I think young people ought to aspire to be.
You don't have to be a legislator to serve your community, but get involved in civics. Understand how you can have impact in improving our school or improving our environment or improving someone else's life who doesn't have the same breaks that you have, and learn about that and do something about it. And maybe one day you will become a legislator. There's a lot you can do to make this country a better country for everyone.